In a 10th, Superman and Wonder Woman, the Hidden Killer. When DC Comics partnered with the US Department of Defense, UNICEF, and the Mine Action Center in 1993 to publish this PSA comic about landmine awareness, it was kind of a weird time. It's extremely depressing that there are parts of the world that this is a daily thing that people have to deal with. So this comic featured Superman and Wonder Woman heading to one of these areas and teaching 3 kids about landmine protection in the least super heroic way possible. And obviously they didn't teach kids to dive towards people who are standing on landmines in an attempt to save them. They actually taught them using posters and graphs. They do, however, go and find a child who had been a victim of a landmine explosion, which would be an incredibly traumatic experience for all parties involved. But it's still sweet of them to try. However, does this really require Superman? Like, this guy had time to make posters, graphs, and a full 100 slide PowerPoint, but couldn't he just remove all the landmines? I know that's not quite what this is about, but it's still a good question. This guy has X-ray vision. He could be able to just see all the landmines. I think that would have been a more effective use of his time. Like, get rid of him, okay, go fight Lex. And at 9, Spider-Man in the Power Pack. Oh boy, this infamous PSA comic has Marvel banding together with the National Committee for Prevention of Child Abuse and the NEA and was published in 1984. Obviously, this comic isn't about Spider-Man abusing the Power Pack, but actually Peter Parker hears this kid in the apartment next door being abused by his giant babysitter, and when I say giant, I mean like humongous. Spider-Man shows up before it gets too far, but then comforts the boy by telling him about the time he himself got abused by his friend Skip. He doesn't say it was him, but the way it's drawn, it's very clearly a young Peter Parker. The kid then tells his parents, and Spider-Man admits that he was living with the guilt of Skip's abuse until he was able to use it to help another. Fun. The second story in this comic involves the Power Pack trying to find a classmate who ran away from home because her father was abusing her and her mother didn't believe it. They find her and the Power Pack's mother gives her a hotline number that she can call so she can be safe. Thank you, Power Pack. Thank you for using your incredible superpowers to open a phone book. I mean, I know that like the point was to like show anyone that they can give someone a number to call, but saying it out loud kind of makes it seem like a crappy message. Especially if kids see the Power Pack doing it and be like, oh man, I'd do that too if I had powers like them. And at 8, the new Teen Titans vs. Drugs. In the 80s, there were 3 anti-drug Teen Titans comics, 2 sponsored by Keebler and 1 by IBM. All 3 replaced Robin with a hero named the Protector. Keebler wanted to ditch the boy Wonder thanks to a weird relationship with Batman, however it doesn't explain why IBM wanted to bring him back, perhaps because of consistency. In the IBM comic, a boy named Jesse does some illicit substances given to him by his older brother, but then is forced to go to an anti-drug rally featuring the Teen Titans because his mother made him. While on the substance, Jesse runs off the nearest cliff, but is stopped by Beast Boy. But then he tries again and succeeds, falling to his doom before Raven catches him. For some reason, probably because comics, this transfers the effect of the drugs from Jesse to Raven, and now the PCP-fueled Raven freaks out. And it's only now that Jesse considers how drugs may be bad, and don't actually enlighten us to see the real world, so he decides to stop. Good, because if I ever had to deal with a drugged up Raven in real life, I'd lose it. Be it the superhero or the animal, because like either way, one of them would kick my ass. And at 7, Captain America goes to war against drugs. The FBI-sponsored PSA comic released in 1990 has somewhat of a misleading title since Cap doesn't really fight drugs themselves, just a single kid who does them. He also doesn't really go to war against him, unless you consider war being near a kid who does drugs. The story starts off with a kid named Keith snitching on his buddy Mitch to Captain freaking America. Like, really? I get that drugs are bad, but like, tell your teacher or his parents or your coach or something, sure, but really? Captain America? Well, because of these substances, Mitch ends up bashing someone's head in during a baseball game, which gives him the wake-up call he needed. Mitch punches his dealer, then never does them again, which was a good thing. Not only because crack is whack, but also because, wait for it, the dealer was actually an alien who wanted to see if he could conquer the human race by getting them hooked on drugs. And they take Mitch as the perfect example for the rest of humanity, so they go home, showing kids that they can only save the world from alien drug dealers with violence, and after they've already bought a load of drugs from aliens and done them. What a wonderful message. And at 6, Supergirl and seatbelt safety. Do you know what you really need to wear when you're flying around the city beating up criminals and aliens alike? Well, yes, underwear, but also a seatbelt. And hey, don't knock the kilt until you try it. Well, in the 80s, Supergirl starred in 2 seatbelt PSAs sponsored by the US Department of Transportation and Honda. In the weirder one, Supergirl is driving 2 random children to an undisclosed location. The kids fall asleep and dream about them driving into a town full of fairy tale characters, all in cars. Hopefully one of them is driving a yellow bug, or I'm gonna be pissed. However, unlike Emma Swan, these characters are terrible drivers. The kids in their dream witness an accident where Humpty Dumpty gets cracked, the big bad wolf runs into the little old woman who lives in a shoe, and Supergirl has to catch 2 of the 3 little pigs after they got thrown out of their car through their trunk after a crash. Yeah. Then the kids wake up, and while it's confusing why Supergirl, who can fly, was driving the kids somewhere, after learning of all this, I just want this to be an episode of the CW show. I'd watch the hell out of Melissa having to chase CGI pigs. Or even real ones, I won't judge, just give it to me, please. Halfway through number 5, Batman Death of Innocence. This is in all honesty a pretty normal name for a Batman storyline in my opinion, and while the contents may not be normal, I think they should revisit this title because it has one hell of a ring to it. In addition to the Superman and Wonder Woman PSA, DC also made 2 other anti-landmine comics, one starring Superman on his lonesome and Batman Death of Innocence, which is memorable because Batman is just straight up holding a dead kid on the cover. After Wayne Enterprises worker Ted Oberly and his daughter Sarah's friend were killed by landmines, Bruce visits their last location in the previously war-torn nation of Kravia, where he learns about their deaths. He also learns that Sarah was captured by rebels, so Batman rescues her in the standard Batman formula, but as she and Bruce wait for their airplane home, she picks up a toy on the ground, which ends up being a landmine. Since she did this, she ends up exploding, which teaches kids to never pick up their toys. Okay, probably not, but it teaches them not to pick up toys that aren't theirs. That's for damn sure. If I read this as a kid, I would just be horrified and would end up seeing the Joker as a good guy. Like, God. In at 4, Spider-Man Riot at Robot World. Not all PSA comics need to be about tragic events. They can also be about tragic career paths. I jest, of course. The IBM-sponsored comic in honor of the National Engineers Week in 1991 features the most insane but also the best storyline on the list. The purpose of the comic was to get kids interested in an engineering career, and after seeing how much money my uncle has since he's an engineer, it makes me think that I should have listened to the comic. Chose the wrong career path. Not really. To get people interested, they had Peter Parker cover a Robot World exhibition for the Daily Bugle, when Ultron shows up and takes control over the machines, making them attack whoever they can. Spider-Man gets absolutely destroyed until 3 high school students make some kind of remote control for Ultron that ends up shutting him down. Yeah, thanks. That would have been useful literally any other time Ultron showed up. So, thanks Peter for keeping that to yourself. The moral of the story is want to build and then need to fight a giant robot dinosaur with no regard for potential consequences, just like when Ultron was created? Then try engineering. I probably mumbled that, but I can't help it. Getting close to the end at number 3, Heroes Against Hunger. This Batman and Superman crossover comic from 1986 features Batman and Superman trying to fix the Ethiopian famine. Superman brings over a load of topsoil for farming, while Wayne Corp is shipping in food. All of it, however, gets destroyed by the Master, who has no superpowers and no ulterior motive for the destruction of the plane other than being a dick to a starving population. While Superman fights the Master, Batman seeks out Lex Luthor for help with the famine situation, who agrees only so that he can succeed where Superman failed. Superman then brings in new soil and Lex develops a super plant growth formula, which does nothing. A Peace Corps worker then informs the group that the soil in Ethiopia is so damaged for years of poor farming that it will take years to fix. So even the combined efforts of Superman, Batman, and Lex freaking Luthor couldn't defeat famine, which doesn't send a good message. If some of the most powerful beings in the DC universe give up fighting against hunger because it's gonna take a while, how is that going to encourage kids to help them out? If their heroes give up, the kids are going to give up too. And ultimately at number 2, Captain America meets the asthma monster. A kid named John is so excited to meet Captain America at a mall appearance that he ends up giving himself an asthma attack. At the doctor's, he gets an inhaler and meets Ruth, someone who also has asthma. While all of this is going on, a new villain emerges, one whose grand plan to take over the world is to go around to elementary schools and give kids asthma. As if you didn't have enough reason to hate school already. Thanks to their inhalers, Jack and Ruth are immune to the asthma monster's attacks. I guess having asthma already doesn't matter. Furious because of this, the monster heads off to kill their doctor, but Captain America finally steps in, picks up the kids, and explains that he had asthma as a kid, but the super soldier serum cured him, meaning that there was a cure for asthma, but the Red Skull's team destroyed. So sorry kids, enjoy sucking on your inhalers for the next 60 years while the living proof that there was a cure is out there saving the world and living longer than you because of that serum. Oh, and in an attempt to kill the monsters, the kids spray the monster with their inhalers, which ends up revealing that the monster was just a crazy adult who thought making a supervillain persona and attacking children was an easier way to deal with his asthma than just getting an inhaler for himself. What the actual Finally, in at number 1, Spider-Man vs. the Prodigy. Oh boy, is this one of the most legendary superhero PSAs ever? Well, if you didn't know, this 1976 comic features Spider-Man seeing a bunch of non-rich kids getting into a helicopter. Spider-Man then decides to sneak on board because he's suspicious. Already off to a great start. The kids then get taken to a mansion owned by an alien named the Prodigy, whose evil plan is to, wait for it, and you actually need to wait for this one, get teens to have unprotected sex so that he can send the babies back to his home planet for use as slaves. Yeah, you heard me right. This alien teaches that kids can't get pregnant before 15, having sex is the only way to prove that you're a man. He also explains that the only reason adults don't want kids having sex is because of a secret anti-fun agenda, and that pregnancy cures acne. But the dudes are screwed. The Prodigy is about to broadcast a TV program to educate the teens of America about these little known facts. But when the show begins, Spider-Man pops in and rips off the Prodigy's face, revealing he's an alien on camera. Spidey then webs him up, which in this case probably has way more hidden subtext than usual, and no kids ever have sex again. Fun.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Sad Space Worms. World's Finest Comics issue 289. We see Batman and Superman as they decide to catch up on some bro time. You know, take a break from beating dudes up all day, just talk it out. I mean, the dialogue itself is really great stuff. It highlights the mental health struggles superheroes go through, not being able to save everybody. It's meaningful, it's powerful dialogue. It's just Superman and Batman talking alone in the Fortress of Solitude. But what takes this issue to new heights, well, rather to new lows, is when Superman and Batman are interrupted by a meteorite crashing, and out of the meteorite emerges the crew. The crew being depressed space worms. Yep, they're attracted to sadness. That's actually how they found the two in the first place, because their super depression was just glowing. So these aliens need emotion to die. I mean, why didn't you guys just say so? I got the Titanic, I got Notebook on DVD, let's go. You guys will be gone in seconds, no problem. And before we move on, guys, make sure if you haven't already, just toss us a quick thumbs up because it goes a long way here at our Fortress of Solitude. Thank you so much. Thanks. And number 9, we have Cat Fur Woman. Selena Kyle looked a bit different from the start, to say the least. We've seen numerous actors play the iconic Jewel Thief, with Zoe Kravitz playing her in the upcoming Robert Pattinson Batman. It's only fair to look back at her not so neat outfits. Well, in the first issue she appeared in, that being Batman 1 back in the 1940s, she was actually referred to as the Cat, rightfully so. Now, at this time her outfit looked a touch different. In Batman 3, she came out in this red cape, yellow dress, and fur mask. It looked weird. To think of the character as we know her now, and then to see her in this outfit, it kind of reminds me of in Harry Potter when Snape looks like Neville's grandmother. It wasn't until 1946 until her mask was changed to a more fitting look. Still not quite what we're used to, but definitely a step in the right direction. And then of course in the 50s she was deemed more of a sidekick to Batman rather than a villain, sporting a much cooler, less hairier look. And number 8, the Unstoppable Riddler. Usually when Batman punches you in the face, it kinda hurts. But if we look back at Edward Nygma in the Silver Age of comics, specifically in Batman 171, the Riddler is setting booby traps left, right, and center, but when it comes down to the Batman making contact with the skin, he laughs. Is this a Joker or Riddler? What's going on here? Well, it turns out if you get some local anesthetic, punches to the face don't feel as bad. You don't say. Even on the cover of this issue, Batman and Robin are both surprised. What's keeping the Riddler up? He takes our hardest knockout blows and bounces right back. But how? And number 7, Batman the Witch. Released in 1969, issue 186 of the World's Finest, we find Batman in quite the pickle. So, Superman and Batman at this point have traveled back in time to solve a mystery. Classic good old time travel fun. Wonder where the comics will take us today. So, they go back in time, and during their mission, they rescue a lady named Sylvia Ward. Now, Sylvia was actually accused of witchcraft. Yeah, they went way back. So Superman and Batman save her, and then she thanks Batman by kissing him. Ah, super emotional, very nice. Right on the lips. Intimate, cool. And then Superman goes in to introduce himself, and Batman interrupts and takes her to the local bar. Okay, so Superman decides to use this era in his favor. So he dresses up as Batman, starts doing all this wacky stuff, doing all this witchcraft stuff. So much so that the town deems Batman a witch. He's about to be burned at the stake, and then a thunderstorm rolls in. Everybody leaves except for, Ben Franklin, who's just hanging out, doing tests and stuff. He's just there. That's fine. Just playing with kites, checking out lightning, doing his Ben Franklin stuff. He actually tries to free Batman with one of his experiments, but Superman doesn't let that happen. He stops the electrical current from reaching him with his Superman hands. Even Ben Franklin's like, alright, I'm gonna head out. So when Batman asks Superman why he's doing this, Superman says, "Figure it out yourself." Damn. So next time your friends start flirting with your crush, just, tell everybody in town that they're a witch. They'll handle them. Works every time. And number 6, the rainbow costume. Sometimes it's tough picking an outfit for the night. Maybe you wore something similar right before. The whole thing is just stressful sometimes. And yes, that includes superheroes. In 1937, issue 241 of Detective Comics, we find Batman on the cover with quite the dilemma. He changes up the colors of his costume a lot in here, but why? Well, this has to do with the Comics Code Authority. So in order to appeal to the public eye that comics weren't just dark and gritty, So this issue about Robin hurting his arm also happened to have Batman sporting some fun new colorful suits, eventually just putting them all together and rocking the infamous rainbow suit, which is sick. He's like, "What do you think about red? No? What do you think about green? Huh? Is fade green? I don't know." It's pretty neat to see on the page, but unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna get any crazy colorful suits on the big screen anytime soon. And number 5, whale problems. So imagine you're Bruce Wayne, right? You're on a massive yacht, blasting some Dixie chicks. You're living it up, you're having a great time. Maybe you're showing off your fancy $6 million necklace. And then out of nowhere, a whale woman just blasts in and grabs it from you. We find this scenario in Batman 579. Bruce Wayne is, well, of course, shocked. He's like, "Excuse me, Miss Whale, can you return this gem to me? That would be great. Awesome, thanks a plenty." Now, of course, the whale doesn't cooperate, so Bruce heads to Gotham Aquarium to ask some questions. He meets Grace, a woman bound to a wheelchair who works at the aquarium. She gives the whole rundown on the orcas, how they fight other whales 3 times the size of themselves, and how she's working on a research project with orcas. But the funding ain't going so well. So of course you probably just figured out what's happening. She spends her time robbing from the rich, and instead of keeping the wealth for herself, she just donates it to charities. What a sweetheart. Not a bad gig at all. She ends up becoming an orca forever. God, that would suck. But don't worry, it doesn't last too long. Because in Detective Comics 819, she's killed by the great white shark. And number 4, the Bat Baby. Issue 147 of Batman has one of the funniest pages on a comic book title page. So we have Robin, just regular old Robin, and a baby sporting the mask and the cowl. And the businessman on the cover says, "Look out, it's Batman and Robin." Like, he even stutters too. He's like, it's Batman, I think. That's definitely Robin, but is it the baby? The Batman baby? And the weirdest part, he still has all the abilities of a full-grown Batman. So it turns out Nails Finney brought them into a trap, and now Batman has shrunk down to the size of a child. So the headlines were amazing in the news that week. Gangland turns Batman into baby, and the photo is just Batman just like all moody, like at least smile or like put a thumbs up, throw a batarang, a little baby batarang. Robin at one point even has to carry him to the Batmobile. So what does Batman do? He embraces it, of course. He's like, "Fine, I'll dress like a baby, I'll become Bat Baby, I'll kick your ass." He does well though, or sorry, he does okay, rather, yeah. One of the headlines that you see next reads, "Bat Baby does okay for a kid." Yeah, he's okay. He just rode a balloon up into the air and then fought 3 crooks as a baby, but he did okay, guys. It was okay. Don't get that too high, he's fine. Yeah, he had to ride a balloon up because his legs were too small. I don't think we'll ever get this comic on the big screen, but you know what? I'll do it. If I get money, I'll do it myself. I'll hire my cousin, he's like 4, let's do it. And number 3, Zebra Man. We talked a bit about costume changes earlier, but that's not the end of it. Whenever a popular character changes their outfits, fans aren't usually fond of the change. It's not bad, it's just different, So in Detective Comics 275, we meet the villain Zebra Man, who obtained his powers by discovering the lines of force. And no, I don't mean the same lines of force as Snowflame. I mean these lines of force, yeah. So Batman becomes this after Robin accidentally shot this ray at him. Now, nobody can go near him, or else the new force field zebra power will blast them back. He actually gets pretty sad about it too. Now, of course, things go back to normal, but the whole Batman zebra power idea, it's a little too weird for some, and I don't blame them. And number 2, Batmite. Of course, I have to include the 1937 Detective Comics issue 267 because we meet Batmite. Right from the start, the opening line of this dude is just ridiculous. He's like, "Hey, I'm not an elf. I come from another dimension to help you fight. What would that be? Fun? Huh?" This wasn't really loved by the readers, I mean, of course. So in 1985, after Crisis on Infinite Earths, there wasn't really a rush to bring Batmite back. And lastly on our list, we have Bear vs. Bat. Yeah, you heard me. This was issue 285 of Batman, and I mean, just look at the front page illustration. How do you not want to see how this ends? Well, this is quite the holly jolly issue, as it takes place, of course, during the annual Gotham tree lighting ceremony. And after Batman hears on the police radio that the tree is in flames, he rushes over to investigate, and then this is where he discovers a bear is actually living in this tree. Nice. Now, of course, it's a Batman villain version of a bear. It's not Winnie the Pooh, you know, it's kind of scary. So now animal control comes in and safely removes said bear so that everyone can just enjoy the night and be happy and move on. No, that didn't happen at all. Batman actually comes in and decides, you know what, I'm just gonna kick this thing in the neck a few times, see what happens. I mean, I love animals personally, but if an evil bear threw hands with Bruce Wayne, I'm sorry, I gotta take my phone out, we're filming. I'll do it this way, not even this way. I'll give it some respect, you know? The sideways filming. Kicking off the list at number 10, the death of Anthony Stark. Yeah, the front page looks like that. Now imagine if that was the poster for Endgame. Oh God, so many tears. So many more tears, rather. Heyo. This issue is wild. It shows all these superheroes mourning the loss of their friend and fellow Avenger. Even Dr. Doom's mourning. He does like a toast. He's a villain. What's going on? He's like, yes, let us drink now to the memory of a worthy opponent. And to make things even crazier, he writes a note to Rhodey that says, this key card will give you full access to the entire complex. Take this CD to my office, play it on the AV system, boom. The guy's carrying around super suits in briefcases, but he gives Rhodey a compact disc. Gotta love the time. So he puts it in and clicks play, and it's so sad. It shows Stark explaining that somebody has to continue after him. And then bam, you see a suit made just for Rhodey. What a moment. Tony continues to say that Iron Man was the greatest thing he's ever invented, and he doesn't want it to die with him. What a message. So moving. I'm touched, personally. It's overwhelming for Rhodey. I mean, of course, all this newfound responsibility of being Iron Man, plus, mourning your best friend. Ayo, that's a tough one. What a week. So finally, he suits up, and it's so badass. Tony Stark may be dead, but Iron Man lives again. So lovely. And the best part, turns out Tony wasn't actually dead at all. Rather just under cryogenic stasis until a scientist sorted out his back problems. Yeah, psych, gotcha, made you look. And before we go on to number 9, guys, if you could please go ahead and toss us a thumbs up for this video because it helps us out here quite a bit. You guys are the best. All right, now back to Zombie Tony Stark. Number 9, Zombie Time. Marvel's Zombie is amazing. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting and terrifying, but amazing nonetheless. So Marvel Zombies is a 5-part series written by Robert Kirkman, and it doesn't hold back. I mean, right off the hop, we see Spider-Man with his leg just like messed up. He's like eating people. It's gross. It's kind of like these heroes in a way you don't want to see them, but you kind of do want to see them. It's gross, I don't know. And then we also see Captain America with the top of his head just sliced off, just boop, gone. Everybody's like, hey, Cap, you know, your brains are hanging out of your head. And then he grabs some brain tissue and says, nope, not all of them. And then in comes Tony Stark. He goes detective mode, right? He's like, whoa, 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 whoa. So you're telling me there's no Magneto left? He just burned away? Banner is only Banner after he eats, and Spider-Man's all emotional like he just had some yum-yums. You didn't save any for me. Interesting. It's a really wild way to see Tony's leadership, especially considering the context. He's like, give me your face now, I want to eat it.
I'm sure the Green Goblin can afford some more bacon. Dude, this supposed to last us till we get rescued.
Number 8, Iron Man and Titanium Man. All the metals, all the men, bam, explosions. In Tales of Suspense issue 69, we see another metal guy. This time, he's green. Oh, like that, it's green. You can't see, but it's green. Ah, there we are, now it's green. Titanium Man, how exciting. They make this big event, right, to watch the two smash heads. It's like a UFC fight, but with monologues and narrating every single fight move you're gonna make. If you skip this issue, that's fine, you're not missing out. There's a guy in a suit who thinks he's better, and he's actually slower and way more stupid. Yep, there it is. He wants all the eyes and ears on him, of course, he likes attention, but when it comes to brass tacks, you don't stand a chance, Boris Bulsky. More like Boris Bulsh. Number 7, Superior Iron Man. This is a fun one, but still a little out of character from the Tony that most of us know. So the issue itself starts off pretty neat, okay? It kind of mirrors the tech that he has in his latest films. He can control his suit, fly in it, fly around, high-five babies, all that cool stuff, all while laying in a pool sipping on drinks. Yeah, his new Extremis armor was fascinating. So much so that Tony released it as a smartphone app. Yeah, imagine having that at the bottom. You got messages, Instagram, some Extremis, and then Angry Birds too. You know, all the essentials for sure. So this app allowed people to change their bodies using this virus, becoming however they wanted. What a dream come true. And then Tony does the ultimate move and says the app is actually just a free trial. Yeah, if you want to continue it, you gotta pay $100 a day. Honestly, it's not bad. I mean, dudes are out here buying PlayStation 5s for like $3 grand. That's not a bad price for some Tony tech. I'll just get my buddy Matt from grade 10 to jailbreak my phone again, just like the old days. We're good. Number 6, demon in a bottle. Now sure, Tony's struggling with addictions isn't weird per se, but it is a plot device that we're not gonna see in future MCU movies. I mean, we saw a little glimpse of it in Iron Man 2, but not too much, of course, because kids are like, why is he dying? Why is he drinking things? What's going on? So this character arc begins in Iron Man issue 120, and it lasts about 9 issues. At first we see Tony and he's just slamming drinks like it's prom night, alright? The opening shot, we see like 3 mini bottles of gin, and then Tony orders more. So the flight attendant's like, hey, how about a magazine to read? And Tony's like, hey, how about another martini? And she even tries to cut him off, but he insists that he's drinking for 2. The other, of course, being his Iron Man persona. Always a healthy sign. Oh, me, I'm drinking for myself and also this H&M sweater, so I need 2, thank you. What happens when you have a superhero who loves slamming martinis? Well, you get Tony Stark flying through the air, drunk, spreading toxic fumes all over a crowd. He's kind of like Hancock in a way, just dangerous. Funny, but dangerous. The alcohol addiction was of course put to the side with the MCU story, thank God. That would take us out of the movie, I think, just a little bit. Like if Tony snapped his fingers and then like a bottle of gin appeared and he's like, perfect. Number 5, Ultimates 3. So since Iron Man 2, we're talking about it a little bit, we saw the relationship between Black Widow and Tony get stronger. And they get really close, but not Ultimates 3 close, heh. So the 2008 5-parter opens up with this shot. All the Ultimates just hanging out in Tony's mansion, and then in the background there's a tape playing. This tape being Black Widow and Tony Stark, doing the thing. Check it out. The issue itself is titled Sex, Lies, and DVDs. Not even Blu-ray either, just DVDs. So what's the deal? Why does this exist? Well, in the Ultimates 2, her and Iron Man dated and of course got engaged, but it's all a lie. A sham. She was trying to destroy the Avengers for the fall of the Soviet Union. That is, until she's killed by Hawkeye. So after she's dead, the tape gets released. People are selling DVDs of it on the streets of New York. It's kind of like in Luke Cage where people are selling footage of the incident, but imagine if they were selling that incident. Some of these stories just need to stay in pages, I think. Number 4, the new Iron Man. The Invincible Iron Man issue 21 had a pretty eye-opening front page illustration. It's Tony Stark quitting. The front page even says, no, this is not a nightmare. So he decides that flying around in a super suit just doesn't blend well with the old ticker, right? He's got heart problems going on. So he looks at somebody else to take on the mantle of Iron Man. So who does he go to besides Eddie March, the famous fighter with brain trauma and damage? Awesome. So he suits up and he loves it, of course. I mean, he's adding quips, he's boxing people, he's making it his own, you know? He's just having a good time. And then Crimson Dynamo ruins that and Tony is forced to return to the tin. I'm surprised he didn't ask Mike Tyson. I mean, his name is already Iron Mike Tyson. Number 3, Convention of Fear. If you're watching this video right now or you're part of our over 1 million subscribers, confetti, odds are you ventured around a comic book convention or 2. So in Iron Man issue 72, titled Convention of Fear, it shows our man in a can getting the job done and taking out low-level villains like Manbull, Whiplash, the Melter, all in the home of a comic convention. And of course the battle comes to an awesome end with fans hailing Iron Man, like real fans too, at this convention. I mean, New York is a pretty common battle place, but a fan convention, I don't know, might be a little bit too meta. Number 2, Iron Man Otar. I mean, it doesn't get much weirder than this. We got Tony Stark squaring up against a Minotaur, and the other plot going on is this weird love triangle with Jasper Sitwell and then Whitney Frost. So the whole time you're kind of raising an eyebrow. The issue as a whole is odd. He doesn't even do well against the Minotaur. Like, this dude struggles to fight the Minotaur. Then in the last second, Miklos the Minotaur has a change of heart and helps Iron Man save Whitney. Ah, it's great, super thrilling. We love happy endings, I guess. We love to see characters lose control and then immediately gain control only moments later. That's my secret, Cap. I'm always a Minotaur in control.
Sorry boys, momentary loss of motor nerve.
And finally, number 1, Trapped by the Red Barbarian. Remember that part in Winter Soldier where Natasha Romanoff has that amazing face-changing technology that for sure could have come in handy for literally any other movie? Well, in Tales of Suspense issue 42, we see a drawn out version of that idea with the actor. The actor is an interesting lad. He can resemble almost anybody, and in his words, he says, with the aid of a little makeup. Ah yes, changing your entire appearance? Haha, just dab some eyeshadow on. That should do it, says the actor. So the actor steals some tech from Stark because, well, of course he does. And then Tony makes the Red Army believe that he's the actor because they look the same, and then he steals it back. Then the real actor gets killed because they don't believe that the real actor is... Does your brain hurt? My brain kind of hurts. Cool, let's just end it there. Number 10, Superman vs. Muhammad Ali. Yeah, you heard me. This one-shot made its debut back in 1978, written by Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams. It featured the Man of Steel and, of course, Muhammad Ali. So, how is this a thing? Well, it was part of the all-new collector's edition, numbered C56. So basically this alien named Ratlar, who is part of a species known as the Scrub, visits Earth, and they demand that they pick their best fighter to go against theirs. Theirs being a behemoth named Hunya. If they refuse, well, the Scrub will then destroy the planet. So Muhammad Ali argues that since Superman isn't technically from Earth, he must be the one who fights. Ratlar is amused by this, as he wants to know who's better of the two. So he pins the two champs up against each other. Now, of course, you're thinking, dude, Superman would dust him, hands down, no competition at all. Well, the fight is set to take place on Boreas, which is orbiting a red star. So, no powers for Supes. So Muhammad Ali trains Superman to become a boxer. So, they start training in Superman's Fortress of Solitude. Might as well train without powers, right? Get used to it? Well, the unlikely duo are given 24 hours to train, but using a time warping device, they're able to train for a couple months. Ratlar figures out the device is being used, and boom, training's over, boys, wrap it up, nice try. So the fight is broadcasted intergalactically, thousands tune in. Superman puts up a good fight, but ultimately Muhammad Ali is the greatest boxer ever to live, so Supes goes down. So now, Muhammad Ali has to fight Hunya. Even predicting which round he'll go down by. 4, he says it's 4. Now of course Muhammad Ali doesn't hold up too well against an alien at first, but he eventually knocks him out of the ring in the 4th round. See ya, dude. Number 9, Rainbow Hands. Yep, I said Rainbow Hands. Making its debut in 1958, the issue titled Superman's New Power. This might be even weirder than the Muhammad Ali one. So after detecting a disturbance under Metropolis, Superman checks it out, only to discover it's indeed an alien ship. So as soon as Clarky comes in contact with the ship, it explodes. Later on, he goes to fight some crooks, because you know how he does it. When he goes to use his powers, they're actually a bit different now. They're actually rainbow beams. Yeah, he shoots rainbows out of his fingers. How magical. This causes all of the crooks to become non-aggressive. And if that wasn't weird enough, soon after he discovers that he can shoot mini clones of himself at people. The people of Metropolis love this. I mean, of course they do. They get so attached to the clones that even Superman himself is like, hey guys, what about me though? Great, come on, I shot the clones. I'm the guy. Number 8, the Snare. This issue was released with Action Comics Volume 1, issue number 592 back in 1987. The cover of this issue, first of all, is enough to draw you in. I mean, it shows Superman with Big Barda, like they're making out. And who's in the background? Mr. Miracle. Just watching the whole thing in horror. He even says the line, "Superman and my wife?" And it's laid across the cover. So what's going on? Mr. Miracle goes home to find Darkseid sitting on his couch. Immediately asking where Barda is, Darkseid gives him a tape to play, which may be the scariest moment of his life. I mean, if Darkseid just handed me a tape, I'd be like, no, what did you do? No, I have to rewind it first. So he clicks play and sees Big Barda dancing for sleaze. They don't show it, but it's heavily implied that it's in nature. So Sleaze takes mind-controlled Barda and Superman to an adult film director. Yep, and his name is Evan Grossman. His idea is that the adult tape would make enough money to accumulate an army to go against Darkseid. I mean, you know, that or a charity. Sure. And then in comes Mr. Miracle to save the day, releasing the two from Sleaze's mind control. That would have been a real awkward brunch if Mr. Miracle didn't show up. Quite the miracle if you ask me. Number 7, Super Menace. Coming from Superman Volume 1, issue 137, titled The Super Brat from Krypton. This one's fun and, of course, super weird. So Superman has a twin, or clone, rather. That's right, so when Jor-El shot Kal-El into space after the destruction of Krypton, that ship ended up crashing into a derelict space satellite and was then duplicated. The ship and the super baby inside of it. Now there's 2 of each. Now of course we know what happens to Superman's ship, but what about the other one? That craft was found by criminals named Derek and Bonnie. So they see this as a golden opportunity to raise a supervillain. Not a bad idea, honestly. I mean, it's pretty... Alright, cool. So they have this little super bat, and they tell him not to be seen until the right time, because that would be pretty bait, you know? So a kryptonite meteor crashes, and they realize that it doesn't affect little super bad. Oh. So years go by and the super bad baby named himself Super Menace. That name does sound cool, alright, it's cooler than what I was saying. And it's finally time to make his debut and go against Superman. So they fight, and Superman used his X-ray vision to see that this clone has something off about him. Super Menace is pissed now because Superman's like, yo, you don't have a normal body? What's going on with you? And then Super Menace makes it rain kryptonite meteors. This almost kills Superman until Super Menace decided he doesn't want to be a Super Menace anymore. So he saves Superman and goes back home. And that's when he turns his body back into raw energy, destroying him and his not so nice adoptive parents in the process. Number 6, Red and Blue 162. That's right, Superman Volume 1, Issue 162, titled The Amazing Story of Superman Red and Superman Blue. It's an all imaginary issue. So that's cool, I think. We just talked about Superman's evil clone. Well, that's not the first time they've had the idea of another Superman. So the Kandorians aren't too happy with Superman at this point. He was supposed to enlarge Kandor, cure kryptonite, and stop all the crimes ever on Earth. And he couldn't do it. Wow, what a loser, dude. You're fired, Superman. That's really, you can't do all those things? Embarrassing, if you ask me. So he splits himself up into 2 identical beings, which, you guessed it, are Superman Red and Superman Blue. And they both crush it. They recreate Brainiac's enlarging ray, they bring Kandor back to its original size on an all-new Krypton. Step 2, get rid of all the evil. Easy peasy. The Red and Blue Super 2 create an anti-evil ray, fancy, and ends all crimes on Earth. Superman Red marries Lois Lane, and Superman Blue marries Lana Lang. And they all live happily ever after, even Lex Luthor. Number 5, ants.
Ants. Ants. Ant-Man.
That's right, we got ants. Coming at you from Action Comics Volume 1, Issue 296, The Invasion of Ants. And it sounds just as crazy as you would guess. The cover alone is super weird and almost inviting. It shows Superman on the side of a building with an ant mask on. He's even saying the words, "Follow me, ant soldiers, buzz 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 buzz, we must capture Lois Lane, buzz 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 buzz, she will be our queen." Okay, you got it. So after a colony of giant ants was mutated from a nuclear war on another planet, they decided to come and check out Earth, as they all do, because we're so cool and all. So Superman uses red kryptonite radiation to give himself an ant's head. Not a mask. See, I said mask earlier, I was throwing you off. It's a head. He's got an ant's head. And he communicates with them. This is like the ultimate amalgam character. Clark Pym, anybody? I'd pay to see that. Number 4.
Run! It's Godzilla!
Yep, we even got flaming dragons. Superman Volume 1, Issue 142, appropriately titled Flame Dragon from Krypton. So Clark Kent and Lois Lane are heading to the Metropolis Space Exploration Convention Center because somebody apparently captured a space beast. Yeah, okay. So they arrive and yeah, there's straight up a space beast. Soups knows what it is. It's actually called the Kryptonian Flame Beast. I could have guessed that one, I mean, come on. So it sprays fire all over Clark, and all that is left is still Clark, but his regular clothes have been burned away. So he starts fighting the beast as Superman. And then the Flame Beast swallows a red kryptonite meteor. So Superman keeps his distance. He knows what's going on. He's dodging hits. He's waiting until the red kryptonite's effects starts taking action. And it weakens the beast, so Superman splashes it with water, freezes it with his icy dentine ice breath, and he hoofs it out to space. Then when Lois returns to the scene, she sees Clark all bandaged up, and the doctors are like, oh, he has minor burns, and she buys it, of course. The doctors being Batman and Supergirl in disguise. Number 3, Red Kryptonite. Action Comics Volume 1, Issue 283 has a plot that I would pay millions of dollars to see on the big screen. It would be so weird to see this. Titled The Red Kryptonite Menace, we find Jandex and Zogar, 2 chameleon criminal men from the future. So they travel back in time and they set up camp on a hidden island in Metropolis Bay. Their goal is to attract red and green kryptonite from space. So of course the military is onto them, but they disguise themselves. How, you ask? Oh, as a pile of rocks and a tree. And it works. because that's how easy it is. They set a trap with red kryptonite and plan to get Superman to go near it. The plan works like a charm, and upon Superman's arrival, his health starts to decline. So he wishes for thick fog, and it comes true. Okay, so what's next? Superman can grant himself wishes now? How is this possible? Okay, so then he wishes for, you guessed it, Sherlock Holmes to come and help him. This red kryptonite allows for him to wish for Sherlock Holmes. Benedict or Robert, which one did you go with? We're curious. Number 2, the Bat Witch. And no, I don't mean a sandwich made of bats, because that would be disgusting. And this channel, we don't show anything disgusting here. Batman getting his hands and head cut off though? That's more like it. Now we're talking. Released in 1969, issue 186 of The World's Finest, we find Batman in quite the pickle, to say the least. So Superman and Batman have actually traveled back in time to solve a mystery of a broken bust that resembled Batman. So they go back in time and they rescue a lady named Sylvia Ward. Now Sylvia was actually accused of witchcraft. So Superman helps her stay afloat and Batman swims with her back to shore. And then she thanks Batman by kissing him right in the lips. Then Superman goes to introduce himself and Batman's like, nah, I got this, and takes her to the local bar. Oops! So Superman decides to use this era in his favor. He dressed up as Batman and starts doing like crazy witchcraft stuff. So much so the town deems him an actual witch. So he's about to be burned at the stake and then a thunderstorm rolls in. And everyone's like, I love watching people burn but can't stand the rain. We're out of here. Everybody leaves except for, you guessed it, Ben Franklin. Sorry, what? Yeah, Ben Franklin, like the Ben Franklin. He's just hanging out there apparently. He actually tries to free Batman with one of his experiments, but Superman doesn't let that happen. Eventually, even Ben Franklin's like, alright man, you're on your own. See ya, dude. And when Batman asks Superman why he's doing this, Superman says, figure it out yourself. So, next time you catch your friend maybe flirting with your crush, just frame them for witchcraft. It works every time. And finally, number 1, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. Volume 1, issue 116 to be exact. Okay, I know I said this list wasn't in a particular order, but I can't not do this one last. This issue came out in 1968 and I don't think we'll ever see it on the big screen, because if we do, I'm going to walk out of said big screen. The cover alone is enough. I mean, it shows Superman flying in saying, Jimmy, what's gotten into you? Why are you acting like an ape? And then the actual ape on the cover says, because he is an ape, Superman, in my body, I'm the real Jimmy Olsen. Yeah, they switched bodies. I'm surprised that camera didn't explode in Jimmy the Ape's hand. Apes are so strong, it's insane. So after a malfunction of a machine, they switched bodies. So Jimmy Olsen's body, Jimmy Olsen, starts screaming around like an ape. But Jimmy Olsen, the real person, however, the dude embraces it. He buys a green pinup suit, even a cool hat. He rocks the look. He even goes to work. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna be a simian sensation here at the office. You tell him, Jimmy.
Number 10, hunting season. This is the beginning of a run, let's remember. The story comes to us from the beginning of Wolverine Volume 5 from 2013, starting off in issue number 1. We start off in the middle of a massacre without really any explanation. Why are we here? What's happening? Why are there all these bones and skeletons in a mall? What's going on? Wolverine is being targeted by a villain who we later learn is named Robert Gregson. Wolverine is trying to protect his son Alex from him, as Robert has an alien blaster that can obliterate living cells. Where did this man get this alien blaster? Who gave it to him? Thankfully, Wolverine's healing factor allows him to save the day, but all the dialogue straight out of the gate is just pretty strange and weird, especially as we aren't really given any context before we jump into the situation. We're just thrown into it. Number 9, Vendetta's Echo. Really one of the weirdest things about Wolverine is all the random team-ups he's had. Why? Well, because he's just so popular of a character that everyone wants him to make an appearance in their comic to help sell those issues. Gotta sell those issues. He even made his way into the Blade comic. In issue 6 of the 2006 series, Wolverine popped up during the Superhuman Registration Act days when Blade was tasked with hunting him down. Now these two square off, but Blade ultimately doesn't end up bringing him into S.H.I.E.L.D. custody. Why? Because he remembers years ago the Wolverine actually helped him out. It's a pretty random story all in all, especially as there is no consequences or anything, but it's fun to see Blade and Wolverine face off. And it's kinda cool to learn they had history, but also, what the heck, that's so random. Wolverine's just had history with everyone, because he's Wolverine, I guess. Before we move on to number 8, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate you being here. If you want to help us out even more, you can do so by giving this video a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe. We really appreciate it when you do. Number 8. Origin. I actually enjoyed the Wolverine origin story, especially the artwork. I didn't mind a little less mystery when it came to Wolverine in terms of learning his past with Rose and Dog and his original name of James Howlett, but what I did find strange in that story was when they decided to really drive in all the details that we felt were needed in an origin story. Like Logan's codename, Wolverine. Apparently that comes from his mining days according to his origin series. Yep. He worked so hard in the mines they call him a Wolverine. What the heck does that mean? Maybe because he's like ruthless like a Wolverine? As far as I know, Wolverines aren't well known for digging or mining skills or their hard work. They're just known for killing things that are larger than them. It would be more appropriate to call him a mole, who are known for their prowess and hard work as diggers. Could you imagine if we had like Mole Man? We do have a Mole Man, he's a villain, so already taken I guess. We can't call Wolverine Mole Man. The other weird thing about this whole comment is the fact that apparently, it's a little Wolverine's code name, but Wolverine doesn't even hear this remark. He's like on a hill while these guys are talking completely far away from him, so he doesn't even hear what they say. And how would he even remember this? Doesn't his memory wipe out all of these traumatic things so he doesn't even know his past? This doesn't make any sense. So I like that we learn a lot about where he came from, but putting the origins of his codename in there just felt a bit much. Unless, like I said, Wolverines do happen to have some mining skills that I'm unaware of. If so, then I guess okay. Let me know in the comments if there's Wolverines that you know that have mining skills. Number 7. Dreams of Gore. What an aptly named story. This one is as strange as it is important. In this story we get tons of important flashbacks to a time when Wolverine got some of his memories back via unexpected flashbacks. Many of them involved his traumatic past and, as the name implies, a lot of gore. As he flashed back to these memories and became lost in them, he almost hurt the ones he loved, like Jubilee, and so he began to dig into those memories. Dig like a mole. Dig like a Wolverine. What we would end up finding was a villain who had a hook for a hand, and the epic but very 90s robo-villain, Shiva. Yes. More Shiva, please. Number 6. Tokyo Story. Okay, so this one was more of a full-on X-Men story, but I think as long as Wolverine is primarily featured alongside his fellow X-Men, we can consider it a Wolverine story too. Yeah? You with me? One of the weird parts about this issue is the random dragon they are faced with fighting, who is implied to be a paramour of Lockheed's, though is now apparently much more massive than before. I don't know. But the other strange part is that when Wolverine moves through the rubble looking for survivors after the dragon's attack on Tokyo, he smells blood and follows the scent to find a woman who shielded the blow of a collapsing building from her daughter. Sacrificing her life for her daughters, the nameless dying woman wonders who will look after her daughter when she is gone. Wolverine steps up without any hesitation or questions. Kind of a weird thing when, he's an X-Men with a lot of other responsibilities to be mindful of. He could have promised her to deliver the young girl to relatives, or simply reassured the woman that her daughter would be looked after, but now he says he'll raise her as his own. Which basically means Yukio will actually end up looking after her most of the time, as Wolverine is, busy being an X-Man most of the time, so I don't know really why he made that promise. Number 5. The Black Blade. The Black Blade is the conclusion to a story where Wolverine as Patch finds himself possessed by the influence of Muramasa's Black Blade. Having freed Jessica Drew from its influence, he himself is now possessed by a part of Muramasa's soul. It turns him into a demon-like character, and the unlikely team-up of Lindsay McCabe and Silver Samurai must work together to free Wolverine from its influence, each for their own reasons. Except that neither of them knows that Wolverine is Wolverine, because they're both fooled by his clever disguise as Patch. Even when Lindsay shoots him directly in the head and Patch recovers, saying, I got a thick skull, she's still none the wiser. She's like, sure Patch, you have a thick skull, this makes total sense. I just shot you in the head. How are you getting up? What's happening? I love this weird issue the most though, because of the crazy moment where we think Lindsay may have tortured or killed a woman, but being an actress reveals it was all a good show and clever make pretend. She even did well enough to use stage blood on her blade, which was what had me convinced, but she conveniently apparently got that from O'Donnell's makeup stores that his dancers use. Okay then. Number 4. Fatal Attractions. In the story Fatal Attractions, Wolverine lost all his adamantium and his nose to boot. This all happened when Magneto took things too far and used his powers to pull all the adamantium out of Wolverine's body. That's how I would do that if I had magnet powers. This would result in Wolverine becoming feral, and eventually he would also develop some problems with his healing factor. This would also be a big moment for Wolverine where he would realize more clearly what his claws were really all about, and the fact that they were made of bone, not adamantium as had been implied much earlier in the original Wolverine series. Wolverine would eventually get his nose and sanity back when his friends spent time helping him recover his humanity, but before then, it would be an interesting artistic ride, where we'd see Wolverine leave the X-Men and go out on his own for a time. Number 3. See Venice and die. I just also love the title of this story. What is the title of this story, you know what I mean? This whole story featuring LCD and Albert was just a wacky one. It's just one wacky ride. These two were basically robo-assassins who were attempting to get rid of Wolverine. LCD was an android that looked and sounded like a little girl with a little wisp. She was super cute but super deadly and designed to also be a bomb that could be used to basically blow Logan away. In this story we see her upgrade her companion Albert, who appears as a cyborg Terminator version of Wolverine, before Albert uses his new smarts and modem to upgrade Elsie herself. This is what actually made Elsie decide not to follow through with her mission eventually and switch sides. Both androids receiving a heightened intelligence made them value life more and want to hold on to it a little longer. Number 2. Midgard's Final Doom. This is an alternate Wolverine story which takes place in a Thor comic, but stick with me here. In this alternate reality, Logan becomes the Phoenix. A few times while palling around with Thor, Logan both attacks King Thor and at other times tries intensely to help him. In Midgard's Final Doom, Phoenix Logan sacrifices himself so that King Thor can finally take out Doom. It's not only strange that there is an alternate future where Wolverine becomes Phoenix, although oddly enough, it actually isn't the only reality or time that this has happened in comics, but it's also strange that Logan sacrifices himself only to come back again later, because you know, I guess that Phoenix can never die and all that. I can't deny that I love how pretty and weird this one is though. It's pretty great. Number 1. Sole Survivor. Remember that time we learned that Wolverine kept having to fight the Angel of Death every time he died in order to come back? Yeah, that was a whole thing that happened. In volume 3 of Wolverine in issue 61, we get a story called Sole Survivor, where we see Logan bargaining to get the part of his soul back that was being held hostage. It's one of those weird stories that is the typical comic book story moment of, oh, that's what you thought happened, but what really happened was this and that and so on. Those good old major misdirects that retcon major stories and plot points away. Gotta love them. This story is so bizarre I doubt many of us remember that it exists, because it's just so weird. But hey, it does. Wolverine explains that when he dies he is forced to fight the Angel of Death, sometimes known as Azrael, sometimes known as Lazir. Winning puts his soul back in his body, which can then heal. Losing means losing his soul for good. Number 10. Songs of the Orphan Child. This is a more weird, twisty moment that is part of a longer, more confusing story, and this moment makes it pretty weird and also adds to the confusion. This moment comes to us from X-Man X-23's solo series, one of anyways. In her 2010 series we see her take on Miss Sinister, who is really Claudine Ranko, a woman who was implanted with a genetic virus that basically transformed her into Mr. Sinister following his death. However, Mr. Sinister sought to use Miss Sinister's body to return fully, even shapeshifting or exploding into his true form, as Miss Sinister sought to gain more control over this new form herself, in essence becoming an independent though still villainous entity. This allowed us to get a moment at the end of issue 5 where we see Mr. Sinister bloodily break through Miss Sinister, popping out from beneath her form, like a hideous magic trick. Blah. Mr. Sinister had returned. However, in the next comic he instantly disappears, turning back into Miss Sinister once more. So this whole shocking cliffhanger is instantly erased in terms of its importance for his full return. Gotta sell those comics, I guess.
Number 9. The Pizza Hut Collector's Edition. There's a few locations that would be perfect for a fight. I mean, New York City gets a lot of attention in superhero movies. Usually the climax would take place in a well-known area so people can watch and be like, wow, I was right there to think I was that close to Dr. Octopus. That's so crazy. It's nice having some sort of real-life relations to a comic book story, because they're pretty far-fetched, so the second you throw in some common name or common place, you can't help but attach yourself to the storyline more so. But what if the climax happened and then all of a sudden Pizza Hut. Yeah, you heard me. So back in 1993, before I even existed, there was an X-Men issue, rather there were 4 issues that were part of this X-Men Collector's Edition comics, with the 4th issue saying right on the cover, "Explosive Finale, brought to you by Pizza Hut." Yeah, so they sold these comics back then in Pizza Huts, about Cyclops and Bishop when the climax is them going into a computer, and it's pretty wacky. They're like, whoa, all the cyberspace is warping around us. The visuals are all retro, green and yellow. Then this giant face appears, and it's none other than Arcade. He compromised Cerebro's core, or did he? So the fact that this is like a Pizza Hut comic series is hilarious, because it's a good story, but then Pizza Hut's like, hey, don't forget about us. Like, you could straight up go in, order a pizza, grab a comic book, and then pay at the counter. That would be the best day ever, hands down. The end of the series was a little odd, however. See, it was all Professor X, and he was testing the X-Men. And he finishes the 4th and final issue with a little monologue about how he could always rely on a few good mutants to get the job done. And then Jubilee's like, yeah, for sure. Anyways, anyone wants some pizza? And then, yeah, it's an advertisement. It's just like, hey, check this out. Psych, medium pepperoni, debit.
Number 8, Star Trek / X-Men. As weird as this one sounds, it actually made more sense than some other straight up X-Men stories. This crossover comic titled just Star Trek / X-Men saw our favorite mutants teaming up with the original series crew of the Starship Enterprise. The worlds collided due to a rift in space, through which Proteus was able to move through and take hold of the long dead crewmate Gary Mitchell. In this issue, we get to see some pretty great shared moments between the two teams. Both Bones and Beast respond when Dr. McCoy is called upon, and Wolverine gets knocked out by Spock's Vulcan nerve pinch. Marvel character Gladiator is also featured in the issue, and even punches Captain Kirk's ship full on, much to his surprise.
And number 7. Young Dragons in Love. Love is a beautiful thing. It comes in all shapes and sizes, even that of, well, a dragon. We go now to X-Men issue 181 titled Young Dragons in Love. This 1984 comic opens with quite possibly the 2 best images ever. The first opening shot is a group of bystanders looking up, being like, look up in the sky. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it a... And then one guy's like, it's a dragon. And then in the next picture, the dragon is so stupidly large. Like, it's way above them. They're right directly underneath it. You would see this dragon from miles away. Like, they're all just staring, trying to figure it out. Hey, if you thought that was a plane, you might need some glasses. I don't know, just an idea. This issue is quite fun. It shows the group of people flipping through the book, trying to figure out if it's the Hulk or whoever. Then they're like, man, everybody at school will be so jealous we discovered a new monster. Sure. So out of this dragon falls the X-Men, and they start losing their shit. They're like asking for autographs, they're talking about Storm's hair change, thinking if it's like good or not. They probably worked for TMZ now that I think about it. The comic is just them trying to fight this dragon, and also a smaller dragon that makes noises that like contribute to the conversation. Like someone will say something, and then the little dragon will be like, sigh, after a line, but it's all smoky and dragon-like. It's amazing. And when it comes to Marvel and Dragons, after Ragnarok, I think we can pull this one off on the big screen. I'll paint myself green, I'll send in a self-tape. I'll be the dragon. Done and done. Let's do it.
Number 6, Performance. This story comes to us from Uncanny X-Men Annual issue number 10, where we are first introduced to Longshot, who of course comes from the Mojoverse. During this issue, while Longshot also shows up, so does a bunch of Mojo's goo. Yep. Mojo's goo. And the panels we get involving this evil plot and the goo are, well, there's something. Mojo's plan is to capture the X-Men and bring them to Mojo World to have them perform live. So he sends Longshot and the aforementioned goo, which depowers the mutants and also turns them into children. In the end, it's up to the new mutants to save the transformed core X-Men of the day, which also happen to include Magneto.
Number 5, Mojo's Media Madness. Remember that low-budget indie film that came out in like 1939? It was called The Wizard of Oz, I think it was. Oz had this younger singer, Judy Garfield, something like that. I don't know, not really well known. Only a handful of people have seen it, I guess. I don't know. This next X-Men issue takes the question we never knew we needed an answer to. That question being, what if the X-Men were in The Wizard of Oz? Yeah, so that villain Mojo is known for using Earth as forms of television entertainment for the universe. So in 1992, the issue titled Mojo's Media Madness had this epically weird storyline where Mojo gets Rogue, Cyclops, Beast, and Wolverine to think that they are characters from The Wizard of Oz. So Wolverine is talking like a cowardly lion, and it's actually quite hilarious. I feel like this type of story is what WandaVision is going to end up feeling like on Disney+. Just a lot of weird references and lines, opposite of how the character normally is. So if you want to see for yourself, make sure you check out X-Men issue 10 from 1997.
Number Number 4. Something Slimy This Way Comes. This is a bizarre story where Professor X decided to throw a surprise birthday party for Kitty Pryde, and hired the most inappropriate clown, Obnoxio, for the party. In this first panel, we see Obnoxio smoking a cigar and thinking about how he's going to spend the pile of money that the professor promised him. The even weirder part of the story is that while this crazy party is going down with this ridiculous clown, the X-Mansion is infiltrated by a villainous mutant who can turn himself into ice cream, appropriately named Eye-Scream, but spelled like an eyeball and the shrieking sound that is referred to as a scream. What's more is no one seems to know that Obnoxio was coming. I guess it's a super secret surprise? And Obnoxio also ends up in a ridiculous fight with the X-Men. Not only that, he actually doesn't do too bad.
And number 3, X-Babies? Mojo has popped up a few times on this list now, and for good reason. We've seen super babies before, whether it's in Amazon Prime's The Boys or Baby Grinch. Yeah, that part always hurt my teeth. I can't watch that. I get flashbacks from when I broke my front teeth. No thank you. But we also have X-Babies. That's right, so Mojo went ahead and did the X-Men dirty. So in the X-Men Annual issue 10, Mojo is inspired by Muppet Babies and thinks, you know what would be pretty cool? X-Men babies. And it was pretty cool. This issue was released in 1986 and was the issue that introduced Longshot, actually. I like Baby Wolverine. He still rocks the claws and he's a badass, but he's like a cute badass. He has the hair. It's amazing. If I have a kid, I'm gonna dress him up like Wolverine and hopefully he doesn't talk the same. I don't know. They say golly gumbucks in the issue quite a bit, and now I'm gonna start saying golly gumbucks all the time. If you could see any X-Men as a baby in live action, which one would you pick? Comment down below so we can chat about it next video.
Number 2. Professor X gets sent weird honeymoon pictures. This is more of a moment that happened in the story Hell Hath No Fury as opposed to the whole story itself being weird. But the moment is so weird, it just needs to be touched on. At the beginning of the comic, we see Professor X reminiscing on the first of his students and also the first to join his X-Men team, pupil Scott Summers. Cyclops has recently left the team to settle down with his now new wife, Madeline Pryor, who looks exactly like Jean Grey. Scott had considered that she might actually be the reincarnation of Jean, but we later find out that she was actually Jean's clone created by Mr. Sinister. Professor X is reading a letter he's received from Scott detailing the events of his newlywed life and includes a picture of Scott and Maddie in bed together. Not only is that a weird thing to send your teacher slash father figure, but it's also weird in the sense that it makes you wonder who was taking this picture. Scott and Maddie also appear to possibly be both naked while in bed as well, so there's that.
And finally, number 1. Dracula? This time of the year is my favorite. The smell of leaves, decaying, lots of chocolate, and people that look like Dracula. I don't know, sign me up. Halloween always slaps. Now I figured it was only fitting to end this wacky list with Dracula himself making an appearance in the X-Men universe. We go now to X-Men Apocalypse vs. Dracula, which made its debut back in 2006. The series is quite cool, but of course it takes place in 1459, so right off the bat, pun intended, you're drawn into this medieval artwork and you see Vlad the Impaler just murking people like left and right. It's kind of like the Battle of the Bastards episode from Game of Thrones. Just a lot of metal clashing. Any movie with metal clashing, I'm in, sign me up. I love this kind of theme, the dark and spooky, like let's go. With Mahershala Ali signed on to play Blade in the MCU, I don't think we're that far out from seeing Dracula fight some Avengers. Jared Leto and Morbius as well. I think we got some bloodsuckers in the pipeline.